Welcome, everyone, to another edition of I Survived. I am your host, Rita Green, and I am really excited about the show tonight. We have a pretty loaded show. We are going to be exposing and digging deep and dealing with a lot of things that are always buried and reasons why we go through so much depression and suicidal thoughts, anxiety. We're going to get real and deal with it tonight. So buckle up. It's going to be an amazing show. Please share this live. You never know who needs to hear something that's being said. So tonight we have an amazing panelist of educated, smart is the same thing pretty much as educated, but they're smart, they're intelligent, beautiful people. And I am so excited and honored to share this platform with them tonight. So please, everybody, welcome Ananda, Tavi, and Quentin, who we call Q. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Thank you for being here. This is big. We're gonna uncover a lot and just be real and transparent with a lot of things. And the people that have watched the show, people that have been on the show, people that will watch the show, even within our own personal lives, we have been through a lot of trauma as a collective people. And so we really want to give people tools. That's why the show is the Survival Toolkit, because we want to provide them with tools that they can use to overcome trauma or to be functional again with trauma. A lot of our guests have survived amazing things that some people didn't survive. We've had people that have survived obesity, people that have survived being shot and left for dead, people that have survived domestic violence, so many things, childhood trauma, so many things. So we are going to be addressing real life problems and providing real life problem solving for a lot of these issues. So I'm ready. I'm excited to hear from you all. You all have a wealth of knowledge and experience. So if we could just take a few minutes just to for you guys to introduce yourself. We'll start with Ananda and then Tavi and then Q.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ananda Bates. I am a licensed clinical addictions counselor here in the state of Indiana. I have been an addictions therapist for over 13 years. My 9 to 5, I am the clinical director of a men's 28-day residential facility here in Indianapolis. And then I am also the CEO of Leadership Coaching and Consulting, where I provide coaching services to women of color that are in leadership or aspiring to be leaders. And thank you again for having me.
Beautiful. We can shut the show down now.
I don't need to say nothing. She just did everything she needed to do. Amen. We're done. We can leave.
The doors of the church are open.
They are open, wide. Come on and join, people. Join.
Yes, come on and join.
Greetings and good evening, everybody. My name is Tavi R. Patterson. I am a consultant by trade, educator. I taught high school 5 years at Ben Davis through a program called Project Ready, mentored, academically coached, developed. I'm a college professor as well, teaching organizational business and basic success skills. I am the owner and operator of Authentic Movement, which is a strategic consulting business where I work with branding and development, building out organizational structure. My hashtag is we build people, places, and things. So no matter what it is, we can do it all. Thank you for tuning in tonight. We're gonna, get into a really, really good wealth of knowledge and information. We hope that somebody's healed, delivered, and set free.
Well, come on then.
Yes.
There it
is. She opened the church. I just did the altar call. Now you got to do the benediction.
Yeah, it's your turn for the benediction.
Okay,
sir.
My name is Quentin Holland. I am a mental health therapist. I've been a therapist for 10 years now. I graduated in 2011 and hit the ground running from there. Before that, I was in IT. Last year, I started my own agency as Raising Baselines. The goal of it was to help as many urban people as possible. But if it turns out to be rural people, that's fine as well. We operate in the state of Indiana. We take all forms of Medicaid and we work with copays. We can be reached on Facebook as Raising Baselines if you look it up. Most of the therapists that work with us are African American, and all of our clientele as of right now is African American. This agency started in the pandemic because I saw a need that was increasing through my children who were going to school. And then I also started my own thing where I just had men come sit on the porch and we talked about different topics that was going on with each other. And that caused me to realize that I needed to do something different. And that's when I started the agency.
Wow, that is beautiful. I love it. So, as you guys see, we have a loaded panel tonight. So, let's just jump in and get raw and get real. Talk to me a little bit about what you guys feel that trauma is. What is trauma to you guys? Anybody?
We all trying to be humble about it,
right? This ain't
what I'll say about trauma is anything that is a stressor strong enough to impede your normal day-to-day living. And then even after you are okay for a little while, you can still relapse back into it, and that's when it's something that has become traumatic and is slowing down your progress.
That's good.
Absolutely. And I was going to just add to that, it's any type of emotional response to what someone considers to be a terrible event. It could be a natural disaster. It could be an accident. It could be some form of abuse. And like after that, they may have like long-term reactions to that. They may have flashbacks. They may have nightmares and things like that. And just like Quentin said, it impedes their daily functioning.
Yes, okay.
For me, I would say that trauma is a reaction to a negative stimulus that you cannot get over, you cannot remove. And so, to Quentin's point and to Ananda's amazing points, when you have an adverse situation that you just can't move on from, it's like, I'm thinking about it now, I'm thinking about it tomorrow, I'm thinking about it next week, and it begins to shift my focus, my internal clock, my behavior begins to change, and I can't move on. And so that to me would be trauma.
Yeah, okay, right. So, because I know some people think trauma is, depression or anxiety, different things like that, but those are really the emotions that are tied to trauma.
Right.
Do you agree with that?
Right.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So, where did that come from? Where did depression come from? What happens when people are depressed or suicidal or they're in a mental state where they can't function? Where does this come from?
I know for me, yesterday we were talking about like trust and truth. And I know there's something called PTSD. We know it as post-traumatic stress disorder, but it's also something called a post-traumatic slave disorder. And if you go all the way back to the inception of African Americans in America, we weren't slaves, we were enslaved. We were doctors, lawyers, kings, priests, and all these other things, right? And so when we were stripped from our country, it's like if there's 4 of us on this panel right now. We are all from different tribes. We don't speak the same dialect, but we look the same. And so when we were thrown on a boat, we were enemies. Some of us were enemies. So they could be killing you all day, every day. Ain't got nothing to do with me. It ain't my business. We don't like you anyway. Right. And so you get over here and you're stripped of your culture, your communication, and you're taught to hate the person that you are, but love the person that the master is. Right. And so your pain became something normal that had been implemented into the Black culture.
Yeah.
And so those things have been genetically passed down. When you're talking about post-traumatic stress disorder or post-traumatic slave disorder, it gets at the genetic imprinting in us that makes you feel some type of way. I have a friend of mine who has never been to an ocean, but is afraid of water. But her mom was afraid of water. So was her grandmother. And so was her great grandmother. And so those things genetically being passed down and never, ever being dealt with is why you get the anxiety. And as I was saying earlier, the stimulation that causes you to panic. If you're a kid and you don't like dogs, a dog barked at you, you grew up your whole life being traumatized by a dog from that one situation that we never dealt with.
And to add to Tovi's point, and to that, I think that one of the things, it's a double-edged sword. In the Black community, I think about my grandmother, who is about to be 93 years old in September. She is the strongest, most resilient woman I know. It's a great thing, but I also see she's like a direct descendant of slavery. She was born in 1928. And so I see the effects of that. And she was taught to be so strong. She taught us to be so strong. And while it's an amazing thing to be strong, being strong is what has us enslaved mentally when we think about depression and think about anxiety. And if we just think about the history of mental illness and things like that, like, I mean, it's just like, oh, the minute that you say that I'm crazy, or you say something about depression or anxiety, then people are like, I'm not crazy. Anxiety, we all have experienced anxiety. Depression, we have all had feelings of depression, but we're able to move on. Depression and anxiety is when it starts to affect our daily functioning and things of that sort, then that's when it's become a problem. But we've been taught to ignore that and just be strong and keep it moving. And now we're starting to see the residual effects of us not taking care of our mental health.
Wow. So it is definitely cultivated. I mean, it's something that, I mean, it stems from our history. And even then, you know, we were not allowed to have an opinion. We were not allowed to, you know, do anything, make any decisions. And then if we, I remember watching Oprah Winfrey, and when she had her talk show, and she was talking about being enslaved and how our mental state, even though, like Tavi said, we were doctors, kings, lawyers, queens, but we were just enslaved. So when you strip that from people, it's hard. You know, she was talking about how her mother was not really present in her life until she became the famous Oprah Winfrey, and she felt like that's what turned her mom's attention to her. And she of course, you know, ended up passing away, but Oprah said that she went to see her mom. She knew it was the last time. When she left, she had called the family in, you know, called other family members and told them, hey, you may want to get up here and say your goodbyes. And she said when she left, she knew that was it. She knew that her mom was transitioning. And she said something in her, she had to go back because there was such a long history with them, and she wanted to get off of her chest everything that, you know, she wanted to be able to say everything she needed in order to have closure.
Right.
She couldn't find the words. She said she couldn't find, you know, really what to say, how to say it, you know, where to start. So she just put on some music, and she said she could kind of see her mom kind of opening up because her mom was very closed. And she said that when she started playing music, her mom opened up, and what she told her mom was thank you. And she said, thank you for being the best parent that you knew how to be. Now that was tough. That was powerful in on two opposite sides of the spectrum. So to me, for Oprah to say that, even though she needed a piece of closure that she could only get from, you know, her mom, and expressing what she felt and what she went through, because her mom, when they moved, she said her mom wouldn't even let her sleep in the same bed because of her skin color. She was too dark, and she was living with a fair skinned woman who could pass as white. So she made Oprah sleep right before you walked in the house. There was like a little area, like almost like a porch, and she had to sleep out there. So these are the things that Oprah wanted to confront. And instead she said, thank you. It was powerful that she took that stance. And then my second reaction was sadness, because we're taught we have to be the bigger person. We have to do what's right. We have to, you know, she should have been afforded. She was mistreated. She was mishandled. She was not raised properly. She was pushed aside. She was stepped on, and she didn't have the freedom to say that to her mom. She didn't have the freedom to say, you hurt me, you scarred me. And
You know what, Rita, and it's so crazy that you mentioned this because I want to share something that's very similar. So my mother, she struggled with active addiction my entire life. And so there's 5 of us, and my mother used while she was pregnant with all of us except for my oldest brother.
wow.
And I was actually born at the Indiana Women's Prison here. And then my aunt and grandmother came from East Chicago, came to Indianapolis and took me back home. So it was my junior year at Purdue, and I was in summer classes, and my grandmother called me and said, "Hey, I want you to know that we found your mom balled up in a corner in an abandoned house. She'd been there for 3 or 4 days, and we're taking her to the hospital." So, of course, I pack up my stuff. I go home. I get to the hospital. And when I walk in, the nurse, I kind of just stood in the door because this is someone who's been a drug addict my whole life. I didn't have any type of bonding, any type of relationship because she'd been in and out of prison, in and out of rehabs, and just hadn't been a part of my life. And I'm standing at the door, and the nurse said, "Well, you can come in." She said she may not be able to talk and respond because she had kidney failure and then she got sepsis. And so she said, "But she can hear you." So I walked in, I wait for the nurse to walk out, and I stood there and I was like, this is probably the last time that I'm going to see my mother. And I'm 20 years old. And the only thing that I could muster up to say to her, Rita, was thank you. And so many times over the years, people have asked me, why did I say thank you as opposed to anything else? And I said, if it hadn't been for those traumatic experiences, I wouldn't have been a junior at a Purdue getting ready to graduate from undergrad. I was the first woman in my family to go to college. Wow. And so I've even asked myself over the years, like, why thank you? Of all the things that I could have said, that's exactly what I told my mother.
Wow. Mind blown.
That's real.
That's real. Cool. Wow. That is something. Oh my gosh. So where does that come from? Is it just, an awareness and a feeling of, despite everything, I see the bigger picture, or is it a learned behavior that we just have to say what's right or what's good?
I think it's both. Because if you know us, we're churchgoers. We love the Lord. We pray, shout, run, and roll on the floor, and all that good stuff. There's something innately built into our psychosis as Black people, especially with our experiences with religious perspectives. And so you're taught to honor authority, not to question authority, even if it is abusive, even if it is reckless or out of line, that that's God's man, that's God's woman. They're human, but my response isn't, right? And so we train ourselves to basically dummy down or water down our emotions and innately forgive them while they abuse us. That happens at home. It happens in the classroom. It happens in the community. And then what happens is when these things go unchecked and they go unnoticed or undiscussed, you create monsters. And so then what ends up happening are we develop those addictions, those numbing components. My brother, who I love to pieces, he is definitely one of those people that is not emotional. I've probably seen him cry twice my whole life, twice. When our oldest brother passed, and then at the point where I had almost passed. And I remember trying to figure out, where did that come from? Like, at what point in the process did you become so strong in your manhood? Because we weren't raised like that. We were raised by women. My mom is, as you said, tough as nails from College Park. I mean, I love my mom. My sis is the GOAT in my mind, but we're emotional. And so I'm a very emotionally connected individual, but he's not. And so when he needs to deal with something, a bottle may be the best way. And so I think that when we are traumatized or we're put into a situation like that, that's what happens. Like, what do y'all think?
And then too, you got to think about, I think it goes back to the post-traumatic slave syndrome. Even that was something that was beat into us, beat into our ancestors. You don't question, you don't question what I say. You don't question my authority. Those things you keep to yourself, and those things have been passed down. And so I just remember growing up, we were taught to be seen and not heard. So it was unacceptable to, if you felt some type of way, you better keep it to yourself or all of your teeth are going to be knocked out. And so And so for me, like now being a parent, I don't raise my daughter that way. And I think because she's a therapist, kids, we talk about feelings, we talk about emotions. I allow her to express herself appropriately. And she knows when she's walking that fine line, like, okay, she gonna knock my teeth out. So let me go ahead and slow down. But I think that's still a part of that post-traumatic slave syndrome. And that's just been passed down generations that we don't talk about that. So we bottle it up because if we say something, Massa was going to do what? We knew what was going to happen. And so now it's just seen as like, oh, it's just disrespectful. You don't share those things. And I think that we are still trying to come out of that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that because we're taught that, like Tavi said, you know, in the church, we're definitely taught to just smile, to shout over it, to wrap 3 or 4 tongues around it, and just move along and keep everything on the hush hush. It translates to our natural lives where we now feel like it's wrong to not be okay.
Yes, that's real.
An unrealistic expectation because we are human, number one. But with everything that we go through in life, I mean, even the easiest and the best life, you have some situations that you need help. You need somebody else's expertise. You need advice. You need guidance or something along the way. But in this day and age, with everything that's going on in our community, with COVID added into the equation, it has really rocked a lot of our worlds, and we are still afraid to not be okay when it's okay to not be okay.
And what I am seeing and what I've been seeing in the past, especially through the pandemic, is an awakening, especially with the African American men of our age and a little bit younger and definitely older. I believe our youth are already there because a lot of the music and a lot of the artists that they listen to are also dealing with mental health issues, and they talk about it in the music. So the kids were already there. It's just getting the parents to the point where they are more willing to get to that. I grew up in that same era of seeing not speak or do as we tell you, not as we do, and all of those things. But as I got older, and when I became a parent as well, I didn't teach my children that. They still need to do what I tell them to do. However, I'm willing to listen to what it is that their problem is, and also try to look for there to be a problem that they may be going through as well that may be contributing to why they're not following the rules that they would normally follow. So with that being said, yes, there's 2 different things going on. There's us, the older people, we'll say 30 and up, that still remember those old ways, old traditions, Big Mama and all those things. And then you got kids, you got a generation right up under that who kind of raised themselves. And then the generation up under that, especially if you're talking about kids from the hood, they not only raising themselves, they sometimes raising their parents. Working with teenage boys that were on probation. Some of them were selling drugs, and you trying to get the mom to show discipline, but he paying the rent. So how much authority can she flex with him? And so those are the dichotomies that you go with, and so it's fighting 2 fronts dealing with the same thing. So but that's a traumatic experience that they're going through as well. This person's supposed to be raising me, but I'm the person that is raising them.
Wow, that is really deep and that's big. And we're going to get into some tools as to how we can, do better in that area here in a little bit. But I want to encourage everybody that have questions or comments or want to share issues, even if it's not for you, if it's for someone else, go ahead and start typing your questions and comments because we'll make sure everything gets addressed. But that is such a valid. Parents are the most important part of a child's life. Yes. I mean, it's when you have positive or even a presence and a positive presence from your parents, it's you against the world. Even if you don't really have what they say, I'll just use an example of, because every parent thinks their child is the most cutest child. So we'll use that. We'll just use something superficial looks. Even if you are not the most beautiful person, if you have parents that have driven you and pushed you to believe you are beautiful, which everybody is beautiful. But again, we're speaking of a superficial society here. So if you have parents that have told you that you are beautiful, that just positive affirmations, you don't worry about what other people say. But when you don't have a base or a foundation of who you are, or even where you came from, it leaves the door open for other people's opinions to become your facts when they're not. And
Yeah,
it
yeah.
just makes a lasting impression. And it's so unfortunate because a lot of people who go through a lot of things are so much greater than their parents, because we've learned from them and learned what to do and what not to do. So we become greater, and we're looking for that validation, or an idea of what a parent, a mother or father should be, and we never get it. So there are some people who just never have that opportunity to get it, and they take that on themselves as being less than, or they don't allow themselves to really live at their fullest potential, when really it's not that they're less than, it's not that they're not great, it's that they're a gallon, they're massive gallons dealing with a ounce of something. So it's not that even our parents, because they're broken. They came to us broken, and they never took the steps they never had a survival toolkit like this to be able to make better choices and have an outlet. So they come to us broken. We come to them broken. And so it's not that they're not giving the best and the most of what they have. It's that their best is still only an ounce, and we are gallons and gallons and gallons. So our capacity is never full because they were never filled. So in order for them to really fill us and make our gallons fill up, they have to be of some state of some capacity to fill us up, and they're not. So where did we go wrong? And if you look over even the history of your own lives, we all have had issues within our own lives where we probably could have seen a better version of our parents if they just would have talked. There are some things that I've seen in my own mother or my aunts, my uncles, just down the line, that I'm like, wait a minute, I recognize this. I've seen this before. What is it? I don't like it, and I don't know what it is. And then I say, oh, that's me. I see they didn't heal and how it transferred to me. Why can't we talk about these things that have happened in our lives that are so traumatic, and save our children from going through it, instead of just, oh, no, don't touch that. That's bad. Well, why? How do you know? Tell me why.
I want to say this. So 2 points. I wasn't raised in a household where a child was seen and not heard. I wasn't. And it made it much more difficult for me to deal with people who were. Every Friday in our household, we had something called family forums.
Wow.
We sat down at the table, we ate dinner together, and whatever was on your heart and on your mind, as Nana said, as long as you said it like with some respect, because your mama will snatch your esophagus out your chest and your eyes and do them like this.
Right.
Do you see yourself? So we were able to disagree with my parents' decisions in a respectful way. They taught us how to. My grandmother and my aunts, they were raised completely different. So when I was growing up, me and my aunts and my uncles were always at B, because you know me, I got a smart mouth. It is what it is. And I'm very, very social, and I'm articulate. So I always knew how to say what needed to be said. And at times my parents would be sitting there stuck, because it's like, we done took 6 weeks of punishment away from him for something that wasn't his fault. And they listen, and I'm able to plead my case like I'm in the court of law and get them to take it from 6 to 3. You know what I'm saying? Just because I was able to, my parents gave us the space to communicate. As a teacher in high school, I remember I had a kid who was extremely brilliant, and I ran into He said he played football, and y'all, he did not play football. I don't know what was going on. I don't know what that was. But as a teacher, and Rita's been to the school with me a couple of times, I ain't with all the mess. I'm the straight, no holds bar. I'm gonna love you, but hey, if I need to rip you to shreds, I will. I'll piece you back together.
Quickly.
Mom had a problem because I told her son that he didn't play football, so he had a hobby. And so she comes up to the school, typical MTV mother, ghetto, just all of that, right? And it always offended me because I'm a black man in a building who was in the front of the school. All the other black men, which were 2 at the time when I started, they were in the back. So I was the only visible one that you saw moving through rooms and dealing with kids or whatever. So she comes in, patting her head, doing all this stuff. And, where is she going to, where is she going to go and what is she going to do and everything else like that? How's that going to work? And you're out here, trying to cause a problem for him. And he wants to play football. And I was like, but he doesn't play. Her son got accepted to NYU, want to be a brain surgeon.
Wow.
But she was so concerned about the quick fix that she was guiding him to a place that would have ruined his career. He's now, I think in his second year of med school now, has done 1 year of school in America. 1. Brilliant. And so I say that to say this, moms and dads, deficiencies are your superpower. And I say superpower because the areas where we are weak, if we learn to articulate them, we create action steps for other people to be handling us a different way. When you say that you have a mental health issue or you have some deficiency in our community, because we were forced, as Ananda said, to be resilient. We didn't want to be. We were forced to be resilient. And so that resiliency is something that we've been passed down that told us that we didn't have a choice but to be strong. We didn't have a choice but to be, powerful.
Yeah.
We didn't want to be.
Right.
We wanted to do what everybody else was doing. I want to lay in my cot until tomorrow, but I got to get up at the crack of dawn and pick this cotton.
Yeah.
So master don't rape my daughter or my son.
Yeah.
Or I don't get beat with 40 lashes because I worked as fast as I could, but my cotton that was weighed wasn't heavy enough. So the resiliency was our people, no matter what you give us, we find a way to make it work. The danger in that is that the systemic consequences of those situations are now hitting our people. Yeah. And this pandemic has really, 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 really shown. Like, I was sitting at home for 3 months alone, and I like being by myself. But it really, really got to the point where we can't talk to nobody. We can't go to church. I can't go outside. You got the protests going on for racial injustice, and we have a pandemic. Can't be around people. Can't hug my mama. Some of my friends lost their parents. I lost a best friend. A bunch of things happened so quickly that literally began to challenge. And I'm a strong-willed individual. Yeah. Very mentally tough and can handle it and can take it. Yeah. But this is one of the situations where I couldn't deal anymore. Yeah. But because we can't talk to each other without it being this, he is so crazy. Oh my God. Yeah. She's nuts. You take that on. And y'all, I went to the ER. I was sick. There was one point in time where I was downtown at 4 a.m. walking in my pajama pants and flip-flops because I couldn't sleep. Wow. Yeah. At the loss of a close friend and the pressure of still trying to be good for everybody else, but nobody know how to help you. So it's like when you're the strong person and you're the resilient person, you're taught not to have a weak moment. And we have to get back to normalizing, communicating that I'm not okay. And we as a people not making a person feel bad because they ain't.
Because they're not. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, and so I am used to being the strong friend. And so when I just think about like childhood traumas and things that I've experienced a lot, and it's made me a resilient person. And to Toby's point, I can't tell you how many days I've just sat and cried because I'm like, I don't want to be strong. Like I did not ask for this life. I don't want to be strong. I don't want to always have to wear this mask. Right. that can become a trauma within itself, having to wear that and carry the weight of and having to be strong for everyone else. Then I'm like, so who's going to be strong for me? And so one of the things that I've had to learn, and when we think about dysfunctional families, we're taught not to talk, not to trust, and not to feel. Growing up, couldn't talk. Didn't trust anybody because of the trauma that I experienced, and because that's what was passed down, and I was taught not to trust people, especially not to trust white people, non-people of color, and not to feel. We couldn't express our emotions. When my mother was dealing with her addiction, it was like it was a big pink elephant in the room. We never talked about it. I had so many questions, and what happened is that I end up developing my own narrative about her addiction and about her love for me as, a parent to a child. And then when I did verbally express that, I was chastised for that. I was told that I was wrong for feeling that way. So I grew up thinking that my feelings aren't valid. And that if I say this is how I feel, someone's going to come behind me and tell me, no, Ananda, that's not the right way. You cannot feel that way. And so for me, that just began a long series of experiences in my life and how I interacted with people. So when we think about trauma, we also have to think about the psychological trauma, the effects of that, physical trauma, and how that manifests itself and shows up. It showed up in my relationships. It showed up in my friendships, the way that I interacted, the way that I handled situations. Like those were the consequences of that trauma, and not being able to talk, not being able to trust, and not being able to feel. It showed up and wrecked my life.
Ooh. Wow. And so so it's like we go from one level of slavery to another. So we don't have the whips and the cracks and the and the branches and all of that, but we have people's opinions, we have lack of communication, we have abuse in the household. Those are still controlling, those are still slavery. We have the, like you said, just be quiet, just don't be heard. We don't have a voice. This is a lot. That's big. So how do we take this trauma? How do we take this slave mentality and come out of it? Because we understand why things are bad. We know what we lost and what we experienced in our childhood. We know our childhood trauma. We know the abuse. We know the disappointments, the regrets. We know all of these things, but we don't know how to live beyond it. It becomes something that is just like makeup. We just put it on and we live with whatever it is, but we don't actually remove it and deal with what's really on, under the surface. We don't deal with it. So we learn how to become comfortable, and then we minimize our worth by, accepting our trauma. So how do we live? How do we live past depression? How do we live past or with anxiety? How do we function? What do we do?
What I do in therapy is take all of that, put that in a bag, and understand that there's nothing that you can do about it. All of it's in the past. All you can work with is using that as a tool to understand what your journey has been up until now. And then you have to make a decision about who you're going to be going forward. And then use all those tools that you picked up along the way to forward to it is that you're going to be. I started going back to church right before the pandemic started. And one of the sermons that stuck with me during the pandemic was that there's a storm, and the storm affects different people in different ways because different people have different perspectives of the storm. For some people, for the farmer, he's waiting on the storm for his crops. For the person that didn't do any farming, they're upset. They're going to starve because they can't get to the food that they didn't plant. And then there's other people who are not prepared for the storm at all and might maybe washed away. What the pandemic to me really put out there is it made you look at who you are right now, because a lot of people were stripped of everything else. So you only had to deal with the people that were in your house. And if you're the only person that's in your house, you got to deal with you. So that, to me, that is the start point. You want to understand your journey, but then figure out where it is that you want to go from here, who it is that you're going to be, because that's all you can really control.
Yeah.
And how you affect other people in your life.
Can I add something to that, Rita?
Absolutely.
I think the very first thing that I always encourage my clients to do, and it's something that I had to do as well, is to acknowledge the trauma and acknowledge that it happened. Because in our communities, we bury it, we suppress it, we repress it, we pretend that it doesn't happen, and then we throw around that we're healed. No, you're not, honey. You're just not. You haven't dealt with it. And like I talked about, it still continues to manifest and show itself in various ways throughout your life. So the first thing that I think is important to do is to acknowledge and to say, like, this happened to me. We have to start talking about it. That doesn't mean you got to put a billboard, across the city of Indianapolis to say that it happened, but we have to first acknowledge and just come out and say, and I think that's a big piece, to just let those words even come out of your mouth, that this traumatic experience, that this trauma, this hurtful event happened to me.
And because go ahead, Toby.
I will say, so what y'all just said was yes, 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 and yes, and yes, and yes, and yes. I say that you have to sit in it.
Sit in it.
You have to feel it, because in our community, I went through dealing with my dad who had a drug addiction. Everybody tried to hide it, like we couldn't see that he was smaller, his behavior was different. Everybody trying to go get their life, and I'm like, I don't know that. Are we confused or something? Like what is this? Wow. And so I think that you need to feel what it is, because we've been socialized to not say, we find other ways to say. It comes out of us differently. For like a kid at a high school who works, as Q said earlier, that is raising his parent or the daughter raising her parent, that kid may come to school and ain't ate all day. And a teacher may think that the lack of expression or the lack of engagement is because they're disrespectful. No, the kid is hungry, or they're sleepy, or they're tired. And we don't do enough research to figure out what these behaviors are, because the kid still innately knows that I'm in school, so at least I'm safe for the day, right? But now I got to deal with a whole added layer of your willful ignorance.
Yeah.
That comes with not understanding my pain. And then if I say it, it's a joke. And so I think that we have to normalize, you got to feel it. And then like I said earlier, we have to turn this into a superpower. When a person says to you, I am having a mental breakdown, we should be like, oh my God, you crazy. How do I help you? And we have to give people the verbiage and the terminology that we can understand, so that we know how to protect them when they feel this way. The reason to me that it's a superpower is because it makes you aware and self-sufficient, and you actualize yourself. If I know that being around you makes me feel some type of way, then I can't be around you. If I know that going into this particular place or this behavior from anybody brings a memory back that I kind of pushed to the back of my head and I'm not ready to deal with, my superpower is my voice to say, hey, with all due respect, I can't do that today.
Yeah,
and I'm not trying to be petty or disrespectful, but I can't do that today because it's bringing up something in me that I'm not ready to deal with. And if people are your friends and they love you, then they will accommodate you where you go. But we have to teach that. So much of our culture is wrapped up in religious perspective, where we have to forgive the oppressor. We have to forgive the person who's disrespecting us. We have to take it from them, and we got to forgive them because that's the way of the Lord. And God's going, and God don't like the fact that you want to give people consequences. But then you look up and you have a one die or lose moment when you got shot at the pulpit because you told somebody for years that the fact that the pastor or the uncle or the daddy or whoever that hugged your child, that was really, really touching your child or beating on your child or whatever it was due, oh, that's just Uncle Ricky.
Yeah, you know, and we just turned a blind eye.
And then when we kill Uncle Ricky and we do our prison time, or mama, and then it's like you're so mad because mama or daddy, I've been telling you since I was 6 that this is what was going on. But you don't, that's your brother,
so
right?
Write it
and
off.
so you messed me up. And then my reaction is, why did you do that? Because you didn't listen.
Because you didn't listen. And that's it. And I was talking to my sister. I call her my sister cousin. She's my cousin, but we're more like sisters. But Candace Bean, who has powerful insight and is just amazing. And she said exactly what you guys just said, that you have to acknowledge it and have the awareness that there is an imbalance in your emotional or mental state. That's the start of the healing process. That's the beginning of the healing process. And also she also said that, sometimes we don't even know that we need help, or that, things are wrong. We just, it just becomes a part of who we are. And we just learn to deal with each individual situation, not realizing that, like Ananda said, it's going to show up in your relationships, going forward in your life. It's going to show up in your job, whatever you do, it's going to make an appearance. And then when it does, it's like, oh, knock, knock, who's there? It's a realization that something, but we shouldn't have to wait until we're in our 30s and our 40s and our 50s, especially because we've already had children. We've already raised them, and they're left to deal with the unwhole parts of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is important that we take these, and if we are in our 30s, 40s, and 50s and 60s, then it's time now. It's not too late. It's time now to start that process. But we allow, like you said, we just, it's always about forgiveness, but we don't ever talk about the person that was the offender. Why are we held to a standard that we just have to forgive, and we don't hold them to the standard that you need to stop?
Yeah. And I always say, and I had to shift that because I carried a lot of guilt. And I was like, no, that's your problem. That's yours. And so I had to come to the realization that forgiveness was for me, not for them.
Yes.
It wasn't for them. And sometimes it's hard for us to forgive because we feel like if we forgive them, then that excuses the behavior. It absolutely doesn't. But I'm continuing to stay in this mental and emotional prison while you running around doing whatever. And you don't even know that you hurt me. You don't even care. Woo. You could be 6 feet under, and I am still here in this prison. And I just decided that I will no longer allow anyone to have that much power and authority over my life, over my emotions, over my mental space. Like, you cannot occupy any more space. And so I think with forgiveness, shifting that to remember that those traumatic experiences, that forgiveness is a choice and you have to be intentional, but it's for you. It's not for them at all.
Yes, it is for you. And forgiveness does not mean that it's okay. Forgiveness just acknowledges that it happened. And you're going to move on with or without them, with or without an apology. And that's hard. Some people don't have closure when it comes to people that have offended them, who have hurt and offend. I don't mean that in the church term. I mean, who have really done some stuff to them and have hurt them, have abused them. It's so deep. It's so deeply rooted. And we have to figure out, and it's unfair that we have to do that. We have to figure out why, my dad was molesting me, or my mom was, addicted to drugs, or my uncle was, whatever the situation is. We have to figure out why our hurt is not dealt with and not addressed and not apologized for, and why I have to sit here in this mess and suffer when I didn't do anything wrong. And that's a hard thing. That's something that a lot of people struggle with, dealing with how to be okay when you weren't the one that was wrong. And some people don't ever get that apology. How do you move on from, how do you find closure when there isn't any? How do you create closure? And Chris, you put that comment. I think there was a comment from Mark Wilson while we're talking about that. I wanted to review, but go ahead, Talby.
I know for me, the closure came in the fact that I literally had to address the fact that my parents did what they could
With what they had.
With what they had.
Yeah.
And that if they had the choice or the option, after they came into the awareness that what they did or how they were was wrong, that they would have been better to us.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took for me to become a teenager.
Don't.
So
what
here's
about
my
people
thing.
who are the opposite?
So if you're the opposite of that, right? And you haven't, I don't know anybody that likes to get shot at in the chest, stabbed, or feel pain.
True.
I don't know anybody that does.
True.
I don't know anybody that enjoys getting beat up, right?
True. Yeah.
If you want to be free, you have to give your trauma or your pain a voice. And then you have to forgive yourself. Because see, when you come into the understanding that when you get old, when you a baby, you can't say, that whole how you're socialized, depending on how you were raised, ain't nobody paying attention to you, a kid, you making up lies, whatever the case may be. But when you get into your adult years, we become so worried about how people feel about our experience that we will hide it for fear that they won't accept us. Well, they didn't like you anyway. They didn't want you around anyway, right? And they didn't care about what you felt anyway. You were a joke to them anyway. So free yourself. It is what it is. Free yourself.
Wow.
And you have to give it up. And I say this all the time. You're obligated to tell the truth. You're obligated to tell the truth as it is. Don't add to it. Because and I think the thing for me, the reason that I'm always careful with what has happened to me is because these people still have to live. And that's the part of forgiveness, I think that, at least for me, where I consider the fact that if we want to pull back the sheets on everybody's life and who people think they are, we're a mess. Everybody is. We've all hurt somebody. We've all been mean. We've all been rude. We've all been the cause of somebody's trauma in some way, shape, or form, whether we did it on purpose or not. And so we've all been the person that has been approached to say, hey, Rita, you said this and I didn't like it. And it made me feel this way. In your mind, you'd be like, I just told you to go sit down. But the way that you said it made me feel like, how my mama used to yell at me and then she would hit me. And so now I'm comfortable around you. You have to add voice to it. And I think that unfortunately for some people, the pain becomes the excuse to stay the way that they are.
Because they're comfortable in it.
And they never change.
It's predictable. They know what to expect, and to have to do something different outside of that. So people stay in their mess. They stay in their chaos because it's comfortable and because they know what to expect. And you have to think about, like, sometimes in order for us, like, we have to step outside of our comfort zone. That's not easy for people to do, because I want to do what I know what's going to happen. I know if I go to Rita and she going to talk to me crazy or say something, that's the same way, like Toby said, my mom treated me. That's comfortable for me. I know what that feels like. But to have someone be nice to me, for someone to be kind. I remember I had a client, she had been married. She was on her fourth husband, I believe. And all three of her previous husbands were physically abusive to her. So she experienced domestic violence. And she said to me, Ananda, she was like, my current husband has never yelled at me. He's never raised his voice. He's never hit me. And I don't know how to deal with this. She has intentionally provoked this man. She grew up singing this, her father beating her mother. All three of her previous husbands were physically abusive to her. And in this relationship, she had someone who absolutely adored her. He was the sweetest man ever. She provoked him intentionally to get him to try to hit her, because she said, this is the way that a man shows me that he loves me. It was predictable. It was comfortable. And she strongly considered divorcing and leaving him, because she was like, he doesn't love me because he doesn't beat me.
Wow.
Just in the comments, says, even if it's painful.
Even if it's painful. And that's the cousin the sister cousin. Yes, cousin, who should be on the show. Go ahead and log in, girl. But yes, even if it's painful. Wow. So she adopted what she was taught through that. So that was a learned behavior because people had abused her. And that's the thing. Why do we allow people to abuse us? Like, how do we recognize abuse? How do we get to the point where, and then set healthy boundaries? Again, something that my sister cousin had said was that you have to set boundaries, and some people don't even know that they're being abused. But how do you recognize the signs of abuse? It's even if, and I'm not talking about just physical, so there are people who are toxic to our lives that are abusing us, people who are speaking negatively against us and to us. That's abusive, because it tears you down. Anything that is a threat to you is abuse. But if we're used to it, like she was used to being beat, then how do we recognize the signs of abuse? And then what do we do? Q, what do we do to change that? When we see, well, first of all, how do we recognize those signs? And then what do we do to change that?
Well, you recognize those signs. You mean internally, or are you talking about as a professional? Or what? I want to make sure that I'm answering your question correctly.
So people who aren't a professional and who are dealing with some issues, and they don't know how to identify hurt, pain, and abuse, to be able to even get to the steps that we talked about before, as far as acknowledging and the awareness of it. How do we get there?
I think where it starts at is, whether it's a lover, a friend, a partnership, or any of those situations, you want to start out with getting an understanding of what healthy relationships look like. In identifying whether or not this is ideal of what a healthy relationship looks like. Does my relationship with this person match that? And then you start digging into that, and that gives you a better idea of whether or not this is an abusive relationship or not. Whether that's emotional, physical, digital, or any of those other types of abuse, all of it can be abuse, and some of it can just be growing. So understanding where that's coming from and whether or not it is something that is going to be beneficial to you and healthy for you in the long term is kind of where you start at from there.
I agree. That's good. And then also, to add to that, I would say also identifying within yourself, what do you accept for yourself? Another thing that Candace was saying when we were talking about this earlier was, people treat you how you treat yourself. That thing smacked me across my face, because I saw the pattern, I'm a lot different now than I used to be. Okay. But I used to accept and tolerate so much stuff. I no longer do that. But I did recognize when she said that, what I thought about myself was projected, and I allowed that to be projected through things that people did to me. So I would accept it because I believed that about me. So, whatever my worth was to me, I would accept that amount of intention that people gave me, that amount of abuse, because I allowed people to treat me according to what, I thought of myself. And then I've seen the pattern now where I've grown to another level where I'm not captive by anybody's opinion, thoughts, unfortunately, at all. I mean, maybe I should be a little bit, but it has caused me to be a little wild, because I don't care what you think. I don't care what you say. I don't care. Okay, so I'm now to the point where it's like,
so I love it too.
To the point where
I'm here for
honey. I am so free. I am here for it too. I love myself. I don't care. And it shows up. Like Ananda said, the other things that show up in your life, so does your change of mind about yourself. How you feel about yourself shows up. And it's showing up. That's why I be half naked sometimes on Facebook, because I love me. I'm proud of me. I'm proud of my accomplishments.
And you serve the people. Do you hear me?
Ma'am.
Now you would understand. Y'all know. But I say that to say, but I used to do that too. I used to post pictures of me in bathing suits, no matter what size I was, but it's the internal thing. I am okay with who I am. I'm okay with my imperfections. I'm okay with my greatness. I'm okay with all of it. And I do know who I am. And when you do know who you are, it's easier.
that's the beauty of it, though. That's the beauty of coming into your own and figuring yourself out.
Yes.
Like, I used to struggle with doing stuff for myself, like, being
Yeah.
being the middle child of five, and having
Yeah.
gone to college and excelled above, and the pressure, of being the good friend, the good son, and everything else, that you put the needs of everyone before yourself. And so when I started to do things for myself, it was always uncomfortable. Like, I could legitimately have the money to go out here and go do a full shopping spree in 4 cities, and we'll be getting ready to purchase the ticket to get on the plane and be like, yeah, I'm just gonna wait. And it was like, after last year, after all the pain and trauma of losing my brother, of having my other best friend live in a whole nother state, and just having to walk through this, not necessarily alone, but like being alone with your thoughts and with yourself. I really had to think about, how much living have I done? Like,
Wow.
Toby doesn't necessarily care what you think about him per se.
Yeah.
It's not my business, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, I really today am like, hey, listen, that ain't got nothing to do with me. If I want to go out here and go buy 17 Range Rovers and crash all of them into a wall, it's my money and I worked for it. If I want to hop on a plane and go fly somewhere, I can do that. If I want to go somewhere, and the thing is that how we are socialized in our society dictates how we express ourselves. And so for me, it ain't wrong to go do what you want to go do. It's yours. Like I have to answer to one God at the end, and he interferes with my day all the time. Toby, don't say that. Toby, don't do that. You shouldn't say that. I caught your thought before you said it. It's like he grabbed the back of my neck and say, hey, don't do that. And then I have to answer to who I'm accountable to. Mm-hmm. And so those are the things morally that guide my decision making. But in terms of somebody that doesn't know me, that heard something about me from someone that has never interacted with me, never been in my presence, doesn't know what I do, and I keep a really, really low profile for that very, very reason, I don't care about that. And I think that when you finally accept yourself and you realize that the people around you that have a problem with your change are the reason why you were in bondage, then you free yourself and you free them.
Yeah, that is so true. That's so true. And then I think like how, Rita, you were talking about like just coming into yourself and being unapologetically you. I think that that's one of the amazing things about the healing process, is that oftentimes when we experience the traumas that I've experienced, they defined me and who I thought I was. They defined my value. They defined how I operated. And so once I took control of that and acknowledged like, this is very toxic, this is very unhealthy, Ananda, you have to do something about that. And somebody mentioned like, I didn't get this until my 30s, and that's okay. I'm glad that I got it now, because I don't want my daughter to be in therapy 10 years from now having a conversation talking about how her mama messed her up. And I say that because I've done the work and I've healed, and I no longer allow my trauma to define me. I am unapologetically me, and I love me, and I don't care, just like you all have said, what anybody has to say, their opinions about that. Even my family, I held so much. I wanted them to be like, oh, she's not like her mama. Oh, she went and got another degree, and now I'm sitting here in debt trying to get your approval, and I'm never going to get it. Like, that is so crazy to me. And so I'm never going to get it, because mine was rooted in, I wanted to be the complete opposite of my mother. So I did everything the opposite, not because I wanted to do it, but because I wanted them to not see her or to see her in me. And that's just so crazy to me. And so now I'm like, you know what? I am who I am, and I accept that, and I don't need their approval. And that comes with healing. That comes with acknowledging and doing the work to heal. And that also includes, I'm a therapist, and I have a therapist. And she helps
Hello.
And I know someday she's probably like, now, how are you a therapist, ma'am? I don't know, honey, because I'm just as nutty as the next one.
And you're good at it. Everybody, like you said before, who pours into the strong one? You know, all of us have had this experience where we have given so much of ourselves to people, and they need us. They need what we have to give, just like there's people who need what they have to give. But then where does that leave us? And how, and because we take on so much of other people's burdens and problems, where do we take it? You know, so and your therapist has a therapist. So yeah, it's important. We have to realize that, so, you know, the church is not always qualified to handle our issues, which is why they don't. And that's why they don't address it. That's why they say, go over there in the corner and be healed and just call on Jesus all day long. Yeah, but guess what? There's a process, and there's some things that there are requirements in the Bible. Everywhere you look, everywhere you turn, there's a requirement. In order to find, what do you have to do? Seek. In order for the door to be open, what do you have to do? Knock. In order for you to receive something, what do you have to do? Ask. In order for faith to work, what do you need? Work.
I will encourage everybody. There's a man, and I don't know if you guys know him, Pastor Corey Duncan.
Yes.
Pastor Corey Duncan does a mental health in the church, mental health check-in once a month. Yeah. And I had did a seminar called the Stigma of Mental Health. And we talked about faith, stigma, and the Black community. And he literally said on there, I believe in Jesus and I believe in medicine. I was like, whoa.
Period.
Because our pastors are not equipped to deal with your mental health issue.
Or theirs.
And then you come in and so to me, when you talk about deliverance, it's literally a sense of getting up with a sense of renewed discipline that I'm going to do the work. Faith without works is dead, to be better. Prayer is not where we go to dog. It's to get the answers from God. And God may say, your answer is the therapist that's in your church.
Because I gave your answer the knowledge and the wisdom, the expertise. I allow the medicine to work. It's not a it's not a powder.
I need you to take it. Yeah. The answer may be the Prozac. It is crazy that we're saying that. The answer is the insulin. That's what's going to keep you here. The answer is this. And so we spiritualize it, and you got to go to the altar, and it's not a demon. This is the choice that God allowed to happen to get your life, and it keeps you before Him, but it also teach you a little bit of discipline.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I don't run to my pastor for everything. I don't. And I'm glad that I'm on the call with two therapists, one I know and one I just met, because I still need one of those. At the end of the day, I'm a busy Black man and doing a whole bunch of stuff. And when you are your own therapist because you are strong and you know how to tell yourself something, to sit in front of the presence of somebody and someone give you the tools to become a better person for your future is what we need. And I really, really love and respect the fact that the both of you have taken on the task of helping people that look like you become better mentally. We dress all this up in Louis Vuitton and Gucci and cars and all this other stuff. And you go home and guess what? Don't nobody give a care that you have a Range Rover. No one really cares. Like we're like, oh great, you have a Range Rover. That's wonderful. Oh, you drive a Lambo truck. Wonderful. It has no bearing on whether I'm going to go work at Dollar General or not.
No.
And so you're doing all that when the real healing needs to happen here and here. And so then you'll start thinking about, I just wasted $1 million on a truck and no one cares. You know, that actualization that we have to have in our community is, I think, the one barrier to our collective success, and that our society, the systems of our government capitalize on our pain so deeply, and we help them. We help them do that. So I kudos to you, because I'm going to actually be needing the both of y'all for some stuff that's going on in the area where I'm at. I'm so serious. I'm really, really serious. Yeah, I'm working on some stuff, and we need stuff like this for our people. Safe spaces where we can tell the truth, where we can cry and we can vent, because we're not comfortable. We're not comfortable talking to people who don't look like this, because you may be a therapist, but there's an added layer with me being Black. And being a man, or being Black and being a woman, that you as a Caucasian or an Asian or Hispanic will never know and understand.
You'll never understand.
And so we need more people like you guys that are doing this type of work. I see it all the time. Rita sees it too.
Yeah.
Any Black therapist in Indiana, and none of us know none. None.
Very true.
And so we're forced to go to somebody else that don't understand us. And if we're in, the danger of that is that individual still will dismiss your pain.
And it happens all the time. And I've even had to get colleagues together. Like, no, we're not going to justify, minimize, or deny another person's experience. And it happens all the time. But when we talk about, stigma, and we talk about, disparities, when we think about mental health, if it's being underinsured or uninsured, oftentimes they are white men and women in these spaces. And just the trauma of being a Black person in America, period. I can't go to you and talk about me being a Black woman in executive leadership and being the only Black woman, and the microaggressions that I experience every day because of the way that I talk, the way that I carry myself, the things that I say, and just me walking into a space. I can't talk to a white woman about that. She will dismiss that. She won't understand that. And so I'm like, if I feel like that as a professional woman, think about the people in our communities who are like, they're not going to understand the plight of a Black man. I'm not going to talk to this old white man, about my issues, about my problems. So they decide to not talk about it and just bury that. And that's what we're continuing
to acknowledge it. That it's even real. Sometimes they don't acknowledge, because they don't understand. So because
that was 400 years ago.
Yeah, right. And that's the dismissal part.
And then what I find to be the best, especially dealing with the mixture of Black people, is meeting. The key is always meeting them where they're at. If you talk above them, they're going to think you're talking white. Are you talking too smart? Are you trying to talk down to them? If you go, so you have to judge your audience and understand the room that you're in. If I'm going over on 29th and in MLK, there's a likelihood that I'm gonna have a different type of conversation than if I'm going to go meet a family in Fishers. They have a different struggle in different situations and different economic situations. And so all of those things go into play with comfortability and what challenges that they're facing. Some of them will be similar, but some of them will be not similar. So for me, I choose the words that I am going to use. I use more clinical words when it's appropriate. And then if I feel like they're not understanding, I'll be like, if you don't understand it, let me switch it up and talk about it in more layman terms or more urban terms. This is what I'm really saying, and this is what's going on. If you don't do this, then they're going to come take your crib. So I'm trying to, or like when I was working with families in DCS ain't going to have you do no less than what they ask you to do right now. Whether or not you feel like you have a problem or not, we need to figure out what you need to do in order to be able to get out of the system. So we start there, and then if you happen to get help along the way, then that's a plus.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. So what tools are there? What can people do in order to live with, because if this is something that they have to live with for whatever amount of time that they have to go through, as far as depression and anxiety, which are the two biggest issues that I've seen in our community: depression, anxiety, and then suicidal thoughts, which are which suicide stems from depression and anxiety, so and hopelessness. What are some tools that people can do, some practical things people can do to get through either an episode, where they're depressed and they can't come out of it, or where if they have anxiety? I know a big part of depression for a lot of people comes from not being able to be honest and real with their situation. So they're left with it building on top of dirt, on top of dirt, on top of dirt, because their minds can't let it go and process it. And they never can confront whatever it was that happened to them. So they just feel stuck. But while they're going through that, what can people do?
What I would say is, and when I'm dealing with people who are suffering from depression, is write down all of the problems that you're having, not the big problem. Write them down on separate little pieces of paper. And then picture yourself having multiple boxes. And if you don't have the boxes to put them in, make multiple piles. What you're going to find out is that there's things that you can deal with that you can get successes from immediately. There's things that will take more time and are bigger problems that you can't deal with right this moment, but you feel like at some point you will be able to. And then what you'll also find is that there's these problems that either you're going to need help from somebody else or they're not your problems. And for those, you sit completely to the side and you find out whether or not you can work with the person that you're going to be able to solve this problem with or not. And then eventually those problems you're never going to be able to fix. But those other problems, you can build up small successes to build up your resilience to the depression. Depression might not ever go away, but your resilience to it can improve over time.
Wow, that's good.
One of the things that I always, and it's something that I practice as well because I struggle with anxiety, is that when depression is worrying about things that have already happened. Anxiety is being concerned about what may, could, should, maybe happen. I don't know. Those type of things. And one of the things that I teach my clients, my daughter does it, I do it, is mindfulness meditation and being mindful of the present, because we're so busy worried about what has already happened, or we're worried about what could happen in the future, that we miss being present in the moment. And mindfulness meditation does a couple of things. It helps you to be present in the moment, and then it helps you to slow down, because with trauma disrupts our body's kind of like natural equilibrium and keeps people in this state of hyper arousal or fear. So mindfulness meditation or grounding and using your five senses is a way to kind of bring you into the present moment, for you to really be mindful of your breathing and what's going on right now in the present. It can help you kind of slow down your breathing so that it doesn't lead to a panic attack if you're someone who's dealing with anxiety. And so it's really just a good thing, because it allows you to just, again, be in that moment. You just let your thoughts just flow and just go wherever they go. And sometimes once you practice, you can gently like bring yourself back. But it's really about being mindful of your breathing and using your five senses. And I always teach my clients to use their five senses with things very simple, like when you make your bed in the morning. If you don't make your bed, then make your bed. Pay attention to how the sheets feel on your skin as you're making the bed. When you take a shower, take some time to be mindful of how the water feels when it hits your skin. The smell, paying attention to the steam, even if it's like washing your hands. We wash our hands a million times a day. Taking the time to feel how the water feels, to smell the soap, things like that, to really help you to be mindful in the moment. So those are just some kind of, you can use grounding techniques, progressive muscle relaxation, but all of those things can really be helpful to help keep people stay present in the moment. And it keeps me calm for the rest of the day. I'm meditating in the morning.
Love doing that during sessions.
Huh?
I love doing that during the sessions.
Me too.
I'm gonna use that because sometimes I get anxiety and I'm like, now look here. I do try to breathe, but I didn't have a focal point like what you just said, and paying attention, just being aware, paying attention to when you make up your bed, when you take a shower, those things, that is really good. I can see how that would feel. Yeah.
Like how the food tastes on your palate. Like we're rushing to eat and get to the next activity. When have you taken the time to just really just take in the flavors of the food that you're eating? You know what I mean? Just simple things like that. You're not worried about what has happened or what's going to happen. You can really be present in the moment.
I love that. That is awesome. Wow. That is so, because we as believers have swept things under the rug. That is way young. That is why young people are doing what they want. I had a situation in my life, and I understood that I was good in doing that, but God kept me safe until He fully saved me. So we, as the adult, we need to let young people know that we've been there. So we need to let them know deliverance is real. That is so true, Mark, because we are quiet. That's one of the things that we need to let young people know. You can choose your sin, but you can't choose your consequences. That's true. But that's one thing that we have to work on. Okay. As parents and as adults, sharing our experiences and sharing our trauma so that they can learn and understand. If I would have had knowledge of some of the things that I know now that my family members have gone through, my parents, like I said before, my aunts and uncles, things that a lot of people in my family have experienced, I would have understood myself better. I would have understood my situation better. I wouldn't have felt alone. I wouldn't have felt like, why is this happening to me? And why am I this? I wouldn't have had all these questions. And we can give our youth and our children the tools that they need. We have a lot of those tools because we unfortunately had to survive without the tools. So we learned our own tools and adapted to our own situations. And there are a lot of things that we can help them do. But speak to somebody, get help. It is okay it's almost abnormal for you to be okay than it is for you not to be okay. Because if you can go through this crazy life, this crazy community, all these murders, all of these robberies, all of these things that are happening, COVID, all of the sickness, the death, all of these things, and you're okay, something may be wrong with you. So it's okay to not be okay. And when you accept that and acknowledge, which is something that we've talked about several times tonight, once you do that, you can start healing and you can start getting through it. So those are great tools. Anybody have any other tools that you want to share with everybody on how to get through traumas or how to work on healing?
Have an activity that pulls you away from everybody that's common in your life.
Oh, I like that.
I have several things that I do that nobody that I love do.
Yes.
Or if they do it, they don't do it with me.
With you, yeah.
So like, I'm a basketball player. That's my thing. That's what I like to go do. And so that is a space where the aggression is necessary.
Yeah.
The energy and the intensity is necessary.
Yes.
So I can take out all of my frustration on the court in a safe space because it's necessary. It's needed there, right? I also walk. Walking with my music gives me the opportunity to get out of my mind what happened today so I can hear myself. And a lot of times I'm like, wait a minute, that don't even make no sense. So you was mad about something that's stupid. And so I don't know about anybody else, but there's two relationships that are important. It's the one you have with your religious perspective, and then the one that you have with you. And you go to bed with you every single night.
Yeah.
And so that's a relationship that is important to me, how I think, feel, and process myself and my own emotions. And so I started learning how to do things that didn't revolve around other people. I don't need you to be here. I'm a fan of going to the movies by myself. I'm a fan of getting in my car and going shopping alone. I'm a fan of hopping on a plane and going to New York for a weekend alone. Because it's what I need for my personal sobriety. And if you cannot do that, find something that belongs to you, that brings you peace, that helps you. And then you have to start telling people also, hey, this is just for me. Ownership of your peace and your sobriety. I don't give a care how much we talk about trauma and tell people, you have to teach people what you mean. And so for me, those are my toolkits. Those are the things that I do. I will pull completely away from everybody to get myself together. And people, places, things, family, whatever. I'm not concerned about how mom or dad or brother or sister or auntie or uncle, best friend, pastor, whoever may feel about it. I know that I'm an asset.
Yeah.
I just happen to be working with or serving with you.
Absolutely.
And if I'm not together, I don't give a care what your operation is, but I got to go home with me.
Yes.
And so you have to create things that make your life easier for you, and don't apologize for it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Rita, I would like to add just one other thing that I think is really important that oftentimes we don't do in our community is taking care of your physical health. And the reason that I say that is because when we think about a physical symptom of trauma, nightmares, insomnia, we don't get enough sleep. So making sure that you have proper sleep hygiene and really think like what that means. Like sleep hygiene is so important. So, and if you need to go see your PCP to say, hey, I'm not sleeping well, is there something that you can take? Sleep is so important. Making sure to, of course, because I'm an addictions therapist, avoiding drugs and alcohol. Like we think that helps. And yes, that may help temporarily, but you're opening up a can of worms that can absolutely exacerbate that problem. And I see so many times where my clients, they self-medicate with drugs and alcohol because of trauma. They don't want to feel, they don't want to deal with reality. So avoiding drugs and alcohol as much as possible can definitely help as you're navigating through that. Having a balanced diet, like having energy. Fatigue is another physical symptom of trauma. So if you're fatigued, have insomnia, having a balanced diet so that you can get some energy so that you can go and play basketball by yourself and have the energy to do so. And then just really working on ways to implement and have balance and to manage your stress, because stress can absolutely exacerbate trauma as well. And so learning how to effectively deal with stress in a healthy manner are just some other things that I think that we all can do as a collective to take care of our physical health.
Absolutely. That is so true. Especially sleep, like you said, rest and sleep. That is so vital. I mean, even to your heart, I mean, you can't really even be at your best physically without rest, without the proper rest, and your body will shut down on you. But that takes a toll on you mentally as well. So I think that is a huge thing to pay attention to have proper, like you said, proper hygiene when it comes to sleep and all of that. That's awesome. So, so tell us, Ananda, tell us a little bit about your endeavors.
Oh, okay. Awesome. So the big thing, so I mentioned earlier, I am the CEO of Leadership Coaching and Consulting, where I provide coaching services. I do trainings for organizations and companies all over. And I really focus on helping women of color that aspire to be leaders or already are leaders, whether they're entrepreneurs in corporate America, in the nonprofit space. And I really help women overcome the self-doubt and feeling undervalued in the workplace so that they can really just truly be the bosses that they are. So I do group coaching, individual coaching. I also have a private Facebook group that is called Confident Women of Color in Leadership, where we talk about all things leadership and we focus on 3 pillars. And that is shifting to a growth mindset. And so we focus on mindset and why mindset is so important as a boss, as a leader. We talk about strategic career planning. We talk about leadership, and then we talk about mental wellness and balancing it all with all of the things that we do as women and being strong and wearing this superwoman cape, right? And so we talk about ways to practice self-care, maintain our mental wellness while we do all of those amazing things.
Wow. I definitely, yes. I want to be a part of that. That sounds amazing. I do deal with depression for years. Used to abuse cocaine and pills to cope. That didn't work. Suicidal thoughts so many times. Feeling hopeless back then, even having sleepless night. Yeah, Henry, that is something that I think like we talked about before, one leads to another, and that's hard. So I'm curious to know, Henry, what do you do what tools do you use in order to cope with it or to get through it? And do you have any questions for our panelists as far as what you can do? But yeah, let us know so that we know how to help you with that, how to address that properly. I'm glad that you said that you used to, which means you've already come far. I mean, you have really made a huge step in walking towards your healing. So that is amazing. So kudos to you for getting off of cocaine. That's hard. Most people can't do it, and a lot of people die because they can't do it. So you're already stronger than what you know. So that's awesome. And yes, Ananda, I need to sign up. How do we sign up? How do people get your services, and how do we enlist in what you are doing? Because it's amazing.
I'm on mute. So the Facebook group is called Confident Women of Color in Leadership. So if you just go put that in your search engine on Facebook, and that will pop up. For any of my services, you can go to www.theleadhershipcoach.com. And all of my information is there.
Okay, and we will definitely post that that link, that website as well. Is this it? Can you see it?
Yes, ma'am, that's it.
I can't wait. That is so exciting. And tell us one more time about the website. What's the website?
It is www.theleadhershipcoach.com.
Okay. We will get that pinned.
So everything is with the her, except for the Facebook group, because I wanted people to be able to easily find it.
Okay. That is so amazing. You are doing so much for our community, for our women. Like, that's a big task. So thank you so much. That is huge. You know, we need people like you to pour into us and help us to be able to pour into others. And I strongly urge everybody to go to her website, please. This is what you need to change your life. So go to her website and enlist on whatever you can. Just get all her services, because I know I'm about to. You are worth the investment into yourself. So and like Tommy was saying, you know, self-care. So take some time for self-care and invest in something that you know is going to propel you. Q, what you got going on?
We're trying to reach the public and help the people one person at a time. Like I said, we try to put ourselves in a position where we can accept almost any client. And what I do is, as more and more need comes about, I reach out to more and more therapists. I graduated from Martin, which is a predominantly Black school.
Sorry, I did too. Hey!
And so I know I still am in contact with most of the people who graduated with me, but I also have a still good working relationship with some of the professors there. So if I need a therapist, a lot of times other people will just refer the therapist to me, and I'll put them to work too. And so as the need continues to grow, we'll continue to grow. Probably next year, we'll start providing services in Florida and the Tampa Bay area as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's awesome. I had to seek, yes, professional help and support. Then you have the answer right there. You know, it's a process. Now I'm doing well with mental health by praying and staying strong. That is good. You have to seek help. That's the answer. And the answer is not just in knowing what to do. The answer is finding out, researching, and getting to know what your steps are, what steps you need to take. So that is amazing. So we praise you for that. Great job. Yes, absolutely. Kudos. Tommy, what you got? I don't know if you could talk about everything, because you do. First of all, you do everything, but and I know you just, you know, were blessed and highly favored in some areas that I know that you have not put out yet. So congratulations. So
thank you. Amen.
If there is something that you can talk about, go right ahead and let us know how we can reach you as well.
So last year I took on the endeavor of actually doing what I said I was been doing for years, which is consulting. I'm a strategic consultant. So my area is development. Authentic movement was birthed out of the fact that I felt like organizations lack the actual necessary skills and abilities to actually help build people into leaders. Yeah. And so outside of public speaking, I do that. Teaching, writing curriculum. I'm a teacher by trade. That's my favorite thing to do. But working with people who are trying to get themselves together, launching. So authentic movement is about teaching a person the value of who they are now and getting them to move to where they need to be later. And so whatever stage you're in right now in life, my goal, my job is to coach you. I'm advising people, working with people to build their brands and their organizations, teaching them how to pitch, how to talk, what they need to do and what they don't need to do, because I see it all the time. And so it's something that I am officially going to launch at the end of July, but it's something I've been doing for a long time. And so I am doing stuff. I'm teaching classes. I'm sitting in studios with people doing stuff. It's a bunch of stuff. And so I keep a very, very low profile for various different reasons. But at the same time, too, my passion is building people. I think that we have to do the work. And so authentic movement is about getting people to be their best selves, no matter where they are, no matter what their choices are. We are designed to equip you with the tools to achieve your purpose.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, we fix or help people, places, and things. We're equipped to do it all.
That is awesome. Right. I wish we had a little clap noise we could make, but an applause. That is beautiful. And I will say you are very good at that, connecting people from their, now to their next. That's beautiful. I can't wait to see what comes about that.
What you got going on?
Nothing. Same old, same
Don't
old.
lie. Don't lie.
Even do
I
that.
know exactly what you got going
Same
on.
old, same old.
Because I'm definitely a part of some of what you got going on. Now, do I need to tell the people or you don't tell people? Because I got a couple emails for some things we got to do together, sis. So go ahead and brag about yourself. You survived too.
For the one time. Come on.
One time for the one time. Go ahead and tell the people what you're doing.
I'm just here.
Really?
America, she gets on our nerves when she does this. It's like she really, if you know her, she gets on your nerves when she does this in particular. She completely acts like she doesn't do anything, but she feeds the community. Is about to go do the press just did the Black Music Awards press day. It's about to do the Stellars on the 10th of July. Been in the music industry for almost over 20 years. I'm working with everybody and their grandparent. She probably produced Jesus's first album, just you name it. Right. And the Wise Men, Christmas edition, and does a whole lot. And so she won't brag on herself, but we will. Aww. And then she does I Survived and, helps our people in our community. So next to us, the three of us being on the show, this is her brand, her platform. And so she does do a lot. She likes to not act like she does, but yeah, whatever. We'll gas her up tonight.
Yes, we will.
Oh, thank you, family. I appreciate it. I don't consider anything I do anything, I feel like everything I do is just a reasonable service. So it's just what it is. But thank you so much. Yes, and I am excited about the events coming up, and I'm glad that because every time I have an event, I'm like, Tavi, I need help, and you are there every time. So thank you for that. But yeah, I love events. Event coordination is just my passion. I've always loved it. And giving back to the community is my purpose. So
she's also managing the fair. That just crossed my mind.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yep. Whole event coordinator for the fair. So whoever you see this year, she called them. They came.
Oh, Pope would get me. He said, "Wait until you put your flyer out." But
let's follow Pope's instructions. But just know that it's gonna be the bomb. Amen.
It is gonna be the bomb. Q, who are you talking to?
Girl.
You talking to everybody but us.
I'm talking to y'all as well. My daughters are over here this week. Yeah. My daughters
are over here. Go sit down.
Yeah. I have to text them on what they need to do. Thanks to y'all. And like getting this light cut off. That didn't happen by me. I didn't get up at all. Somebody else did that. I got my own production crew going on in the
background. Okay.
That's what we saw.
Oh my goodness, that is so funny. Okay, y'all. So I mean, the show was an hour. We've been on for an hour and 40 minutes. It's just been so full of rich substance. And I am so grateful for you guys. I'm so honored that you guys are all here. And as we get ready to wrap up, what advice, encouragement, I'm not even going to give options. I'm just going to, say whatever, what do you have to share with everybody in wrapping up? Whatever you feel like you want to share, please do.
I would just say that the trauma that people may have experienced, the things that you have gone through, while that is not your fault, your healing is your responsibility.
Ooh. Okay. Right.
Yeah. I'm feeling some kind of way about my responsibilities because
that thing was powerful. You could have just spit on us. I mean, that would have been easier.
I mean, just tell me that I'm doing a bad job of taking care of myself and I would have received it. But you can just, I don't know what to say after that. Live long and prosper. I would definitely say that trust yourself, trust your pain. It is what you feel it is. And once you feel it, once you sit in it, you're obligated, if you want to live, to do something about it.
Who's gonna say something like that? I
will.
Run after a nod. Put the nail in the coffin.
Oh, we got Q. Q's coming.
Yep. Everybody needs somebody to talk to. Think about your therapist as your friend, even though they're not your friend. There's a guided person that can help you sort out your thoughts. And so we exist. That's why we exist. Work with us.
Wow. We exist. That's why we exist. Listen, that's so true. I mean to tell you, this is why they are here. I mean, it's okay. That is absolutely powerful. Q, did we talk about the stuff that you're doing?
Outside of raising baseline stuff, I'm still on the Race and Cultural Leadership Network committee. I'm on the board for the Marion County Commission on Youth. And other than that, I've wound down just about all the other stuff that I'm doing. I'm still part of the CRT, which is the Community Response Team. So, okay. Which helps the police respond to to violent situations to deal with the families and the crowds that are around, to do immediate crisis things.
Yeah.
Now he just named all that stuff and said, other than that, okay. Other than that.
I had so many more things that I was doing, and I was like, I'm doing too much. I had time to do the stuff I want to do.
So how do we reach you?
I can be reached most easily at qholland@gmail.com or through the Facebook group of Raising Baselines, or you can reach me as Quentin Holland on Facebook as well. Those will both take you to the professional pages. Other than that, that's probably the easiest way to get in contact with me.
Okay, Talvi, I know Ananda mentioned her how to contact her, but I don't know if we got you about how to contact and reach out.
Shoot me a DM. My email is topattern1982@gmail.com.
Okay, and if you guys will post all that in the comments, we'll get it posted on the status and in the videos as well. But thank you guys so much. This has been so powerful and enlightening, and you made it so easy for us to have a raw conversation about some deep stuff. And thank you to all of those that are watching and have watched, up until this point. I know that I usually would say, I hope that you got something out of it, but I know you did, because I did. And this has just been an amazing, amazing show. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a part, Ananda, Quentin, and Talvi. Woo, y'all said some stuff today that we're going to have to pin, because, oh my God, it'll probably be, most of your quotes will be my status for the next few days. So I'll tag y'all, give y'all credit, but y'all said some powerful things and gave us a lot of tools that some of us didn't even know, existed, or, to know to even think about trying. I really like the breathing concept, the thinking about some of the things that Ananda was saying, as far as like, just taking in as you're making your bed, as you're eating, those things. And then Tavi, the getaway. Yeah, do something where everybody else is, not involved. And then Q, how you were talking about reaching out to people, talk to somebody. Everybody needs somebody, and we all need somebody. And if you think that you don't need somebody, you need somebody the most. So please reach out to these amazing people. They are well versed in their fields. They are educated. They're not just saying what they're saying because it sounds good. This is their experience. This is their education. This is their profession, and they can help. So please take time to reach out to every single one of them and get what you need to be whole. Yes, thank you. Okay, so Q Holland at raisingbaselines.com. Okay, and then Facebook page. Yes, so we're going to post all of their information here, and we'll also post it on all of the social media. I think Chris and I think Tavi has his in there, and I think Ananda's going to put hers in the chat as well, and then we'll get those posted too. So, again, thank you so much for tuning in. I do hope that something was said that is something you can walk away and exercise. Not just, I know that things were said to help, but things that you could actually put into practice. Okay, I see the info at leadhershipcoach.com, and Chris is going to post that as well. And then the Confident Women of Color in Leadership. Please make sure that you go to Facebook. Go right now. Confident Women of Color in Leadership. I already did. I showed you on my phone. I already went there. This is life-changing. You have access to so many resources. This show tonight has taken away my every excuse not to succeed, not to be whole, not to be what I need to be, not to be the proper leader, not to be the proper mother, not to be all of those things. I don't have that excuse anymore because I have all the tools right here in front of me, and I'm going to take advantage of them. And I encourage you all to take advantage of it as well. Again, Confident Women of Color in Leadership. If you are a woman of color, please join that. And then the emails for the other two have also been posted, and we will continue to post that. So thank you again. We want to hear from you too. So what have you survived? We want to hear your stories. We know that you have a lot of amazing things that you have survived, and we want to highlight you as an overcomer that rises up when most people fall down. So if you are one of those people and would like to be a part of I Survived, please email us at theisurviveshow@gmail.com. You can inbox me. Just reach out however you feel comfortable. But again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you. I can't thank you enough. I'm gonna keep saying it because I keep meaning it. But it has been an honor and a pleasure. So until next week, you guys take care.